Okay, we are here with today's talk, and you may settle down for it and say sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Katame cha te bhikkave cha Aparihaniyadhamma kalyana mittatati. Dear Dhamma friends, now in this world, whether the Buddha's teaching is there, whether it's not there, people, they always feel friction. They experience suffering in this world. When they try to make their lives comfortable, sometimes due to various causes, they experience suffering. Sometimes death of loved ones, or maybe some other sickness, or various other experiences they have. So in this world, people, they always feel friction. And they try to find a solution to this friction. They go on a search. They start seeking. What is the solution? How can I resolve this matter? So that way, even whether the Buddha's teaching is not there, people go search for some truth. They try to find some solution to this problem. So you can see, it's a human problem that the Buddha is addressing. Whether the Buddha is there or not, it doesn't matter. People, they always start to feel this friction in life. They experience suffering in this life, and as a result, they start to search for something. They start to look for something. They try to find a solution to this. They probably try various different things. They might try finding certain solutions to them. So that way they keep trying, but still without the teachings of Buddha, they usually end up getting in decline. That's the very nature of this life, because the truth is not out there. Buddha's teaching is not out there. Due to that matter, they end up in decline. They try to find a solution. Their effort was truthful. Their effort was wholesome, but still they couldn't find a solution. So eventually, they end up in decline. But when the Buddha's teaching is there, that's out there in the world, then one can search and find the truth. That is the very idea of this sasana, or of this teaching. So you can see, when people search for it, if the Buddha's teaching is there, then they can find a solution. Even if you consider about your own experience with suffering, maybe due to certain incidents in your life, due to certain experiences in your life, you turned your search or attention towards the practice of meditation. And all of us, we have certain experiences, certain incidents in our lives that turned our attention towards the practice. Same goes for the other people, same goes for the other times, but they search, but they can't find, because there is no truth out there. There is no Buddha's teaching out there. So you can see, only during a special time, that's the teaching is out there. Only during a special time, that's the truth is out there, we can resolve this problem. So you can see, this noble path, or this holy path, it opens only when the Buddha's teaching is there. Otherwise, the truth is out there in the world, but you don't know how to get to it. You don't have a practice in order to get there. You don't have guidelines towards your meditation. You don't know what to do when certain problems, issues appear in your meditation. So you can see the whole process, it is about finding this Buddha's teaching, finding good company in this world. Good company probably not the best translation. Because when we say good company, sometimes we feel like our friends are also good company. Our parents are also good company. Our children are also good company. That way we feel. But when it comes to this practice, Kalyana Mittata, the idea of getting support from somebody towards this practice, that is the very factor that will help you non-decline. Otherwise, in other times also, people search, but they end up finding nothing. They can't do this on their own. Now imagine these few days we have spent probably a week here, and during this time we had no worldly worries. We didn't have to feed ourselves. We didn't have to worry about our bills. We didn't have to worry about cooking meals. No worries were there. No worldly worries or tasks were there. And during these 7 days, you were facilitated everything, and you could concentrate on your practice. You could focus on your practice. Now, how did we get that benefit? How did we get that support? And that happens due to the Buddha's teachings. You can see many people are supporting this system. Probably some people we don't know. We haven't met them. But they came here, they offered you food. They supplied for your bills. So that way you can see various people, a whole system supported us. That very system is considered Kalyana Mittata. Otherwise, support towards the practice. Don't get it wrong. When we say good company, it feels like even that's there out in the world. That's not the real idea here. Here, Kalyana Mittata is defined as the support towards the practice. Even the people who came here for a night and cooked us meals, they were supporting us as Kalyana Mitta. They were supporting us for our practice meditation. Even the people who were far away but still paid for the bills here, they were supporting us towards the practice. Whatever the teachings that we have been discussing, those teachings were supporting us towards the practice. Even this very group, the others in this group, they were supporting us towards the practice. You come to this hall alone, you won't be doing much of the meditation. Probably it will take the whole day for you to sweep the entire area. Right? So you won't be having any time to do the meditation. Maybe you'll have to clean the washrooms as well. But there were many people who even supported us cleaning the washrooms before the retreat. There were many people who supported us cleaning this environment for us to continue meditation. So you can see all of us, we are moving towards Nibbana or progressing in this path as a group. That very support is considered as Kalyana Mittata in this practice. And without that, you won't be able to continue this noble quest There is no doubt about it. Let's say you hear Buddha's teachings, but when it comes to meditation, the approach is totally different. You can go through Anapanasati Sutta, but when you really practice, you identify it doesn't go according to the book. You have many experiences for that. During these 7 days, we have been experiencing and discussing. So you could see that even the book teaching is there, we can't continue the meditation. Even the facilities are there, without other people, we won't be supported to do something like this. So all other people, this whole system that is supporting us towards meditation, towards this wholesome path, the noble path. This noble quest you can only do with this support. That's why even in other times, people go search for something. They search for truth, but still they end up in decline. Why? Because this system is not there. So this whole system that supports us towards the noble quest, that system we can identify as Kalyana Mitta. Not only the people that you know, not only the teachers that you know, this whole system is considered as Kalyana Mitta. Even some commoner who came here, supported us with a little donation or some food, those people also a part of this system. That way you can see this whole system is running, and as a result we are able to practice and continue as individuals. That's the very idea of today's topic. One time Venerable Ananda, he was saying to Buddha, Bhante, after careful reflection, I think that this Kalyana Mittata is probably like 50% of the noble quest. It's probably like 50% of the noble quest. That's Ananda's opinion, Venerable Ananda's opinion after careful reflection. But the Buddha is saying, no Ananda, you are wrong. 100% of this noble quest is Kalyana Mittata. Without that, you won't be able to continue this path. The 100%, the entire noble quest is considered as Kalyana Mittata. So Buddha is suggesting us the 6 quality that will help us towards non-decline. And here, same approach, Katame cha te bhikkave cha Aparihaniyadhamma. What are the 6 qualities that lead to non-decline? That's the question. And Buddha says, Kalyana Mittata, good friendship. Otherwise, this whole system that supports us. Without that, we won't be doing this. Without that, we won't be going on this noble quest. Some of us, we think that we can simply do this on our own. Even some stories are there that will support that opinion. You can get some advice from Buddha, you can go to the forest and you can meditate. But nowadays, you only have the teaching, and when you listen to the certain teachings or sutta, you go to the forest and you simply try to survive on your own. That won't happen. In the forest, probably you will starve to death. You won't get any food. You will have to come to the village. And even in meditation, many pitfalls are there that will take you in a wrong direction. That will take you towards decline. Because even certain sights, certain experiences that we get in meditation, those things could lead us towards a wrong direction. Best example would be our discussions during these days. You were having many doubts, questions about certain experiences. and how to approach them. Certain ideas came to your mind, certain opinions came to your mind, but most of the time those opinions, ideas, they are leading us towards a wrong direction. So you can see how this whole system is supporting us towards this practice. Otherwise, we won't be able to go on this noble quest. We won't be able to continue this practice. That's why Buddha is saying that this whole noble quest is considered as Kalyana Mittata. Without that, we won't be able to do it. That's the very idea. The meditators, they easily get into wrong views, wrong opinions without the support of a teacher or advice. If proper advice is not given, then most of the time people end up getting into a wrong view and eventually decline in their practice. So you can see how important proper advice is. How without that we'll be going in a wrong direction. Right? So you can see this whole system is supporting us. Without that system, we won't be meditators, we won't be doing that. So this is the sixth quality that will help you support towards non-decline. This quality is very important because even Buddha himself identified this very quality as the whole noble quest. Venerable Ananda was giving only 50% weight, but Buddha was saying, no Ananda, you are wrong. Instead, this is the whole noble quest. 100% of it goes towards Kalyana Mitta. Without that, we won't be here, we won't be having this discussion. So you can understand how this entire system is supporting us, how it is helping us towards the practice, towards the Nibbana. That very idea is important. So this quality is very helpful. Without this quality, you won't be able to survive this practice. So most of the people, if they don't get proper advice, their practice isn't going to work. You simply think that you can simply sit here, listen to these things. It is helpful, of course. But you have to present your experience and get some advice. Presenting your experience, getting some advice is important. Some people, they just come here, spend few days, do a little meditation, don't get proper advice, and they go away, they go to the world and they say, I have done it, it's not gonna work. I have been to Nissarana, it's not working for me. All those opinions, ideas, they have. Even some people, they go and they start their own meditation center. They say, Vipassana meditation, you come and I'll teach you. Right? So all those wrong practices, wrong views are there. If you get into a wrong view, wrong practice, then probably you won't come out of it for eons even. Not sure. Because once you get a wrong view, it's so difficult to let go of it. It's like your parents. Right? Whatever the thoughts, opinions, they feed you, they pump you. You have those things in your bone marrow even. Right? That's how it works. You end up, you grow up thinking that the parents are not good. You grow up hating your mother. But when you probably reach age 40 or so, you realize I am my mother. I grew up hating my mother for my entire life, but still, eventually I turn out to be that very parent. Right? So you can see the opinions, ideas, thoughts, our parents feed into us. They are like our foundation. Same goes for the practice. If you start getting into a certain kind of a practice, let's say you get certain wrong views from it, then it's not easy to get rid of them. It's like that becomes your foundation. And sometimes it may take eons for you to correct yourself. So that's the nature of this. The practice or the advice we get, it's like our parents. And if we start with a wrong practice, if we start with wrong advice, then it's not easy to let go of them. I have known certain people, they have done this quest maybe for like 15, 20 years. But they started with certain wrong views, wrong practices. And eventually they were led towards the correct practice. But even after many years of practice, the correct practice, they were having those wrong views, opinions in them. It's like the parents, right? You end up hating it, you grow up hating it, but still you figure out later that I am my parents. I am my mother, probably the most hated parent. That's the nature, right? Same goes for the wrong views, opinions that you get into you. And eventually, after even many years, you realize that still they are there. Still I am having these views, opinions. That's like, it becomes like your foundation. So you can see how important this quality is, how important our discussions are, how important that we present our own meditation experience. We are practicing and we are discussing the very experience that we had. That way we continue, that way we grow. That's the very idea. Now, I remember one of the stories in one of the suttas, and that particular story was about a bhikkhu named Sati. Not Sati, Sati. Sati, that's that monk's name. And he was saying, he was into some wrong view. And he was telling everyone about that wrong view. And he was saying some view about consciousness. He was saying there's this permanent consciousness, independent consciousness that travels from life to life. Probably the idea of a soul. Even nowadays we have that idea. They talk about soul. You have a soul and that will leave from this body and go to a new place. Those type of views. So this particular monk was also having that wrong view, and he was saying there's this independent, permanent consciousness that travels from life to life. And he went around telling it to everyone, not as his opinion. He was telling, I have heard from Buddha, I have learned from Buddha that this permanent, independent consciousness travels from life to life. That was the view that he was having. So this person went around saying this to many people. Even the nowadays, Buddhists, they are also having these type of ideas. They think that consciousness is permanent and independent. And it is traveling life to life. Those type of ideas are there out in the world. I remember one time I went to one of the Satipasala sessions, Colombo, and government institution. And one person, since I was a monk, they come and chit-chat. So this person came and he wanted to prove to me that he was a good Buddhist. Right? You have to prove to me. Prove to the monk, no? Otherwise it feels like something is lacking. So he was telling, Bhante, I found something very nice on Facebook. It is about this practice. And it talks some idea. It was a post, those caption quotes, post talking about a soul that travels from life to life. And he was identifying this as the Buddhist view. He was saying, Bhante, see, this quote is very popular on Facebook, and you can see Buddhist teachings in this. And the consciousness or the soul travels from life to life. That type of idea was there in that quote. So what to tell him? Right? Probably to, just simply end the discussion and, not telling him would be the best. Because it's not easy to explain such things to these ignorant people. We as a group, after even practicing for many years, still struggle to understand these things. So how can we explain it to a newbie? A person who doesn't know this type of a practice. So he was saying, I didn't mention much. I simply closed the discussion saying something. But even outside people, they are having this idea. So probably the lineage from this particular bhikkhu. He was also saying that permanent independent consciousness traveling life to life. That was the idea he was saying and spreading. So certain monks, they heard it and probably went to Venerable Sariputta. As far as I can remember, it was Venerable Sariputta, not the Buddha. So they went to this monk, Sariputta, and complained about this Sati Bhikkhu, this particular monk. And later, Venerable Sariputta was talking to him, and not probably Venerable Sariputta, maybe Buddha. He was talking to him and asked him, what are the view that you are spreading? Then this particular monk said, Bhante, I am saying that consciousness, it is permanent and independent, and it is traveling life to life. That's the view, and I have heard it from you, I have learned it from you. That's the idea he gave. Then Buddha blasted at him, saying, you are wrong. You didn't get the proper idea. How many times have I told you that consciousness comes due to certain causes? That's the very answer Buddha gave. So you can see there's no such thing as a solid consciousness. Instead, it appears due to certain causes. For example, when the eye is there, when a sight hits it, as a result, the eye consciousness will appear. Right? When a sight hits your eye, the eye consciousness will appear. Certain things should be fulfilled in order eye consciousness to appear. Let's say your eye should be intact. There should be sights in the outside world. And you should be living, breathing. When you are unconscious, when you are in a faint state, that won't happen. Right? So you can see when certain conditions are fulfilled, then eye sees a sight and comes the eye consciousness. Then you hear a sound with your ear consciousness appears. Same goes for the body, same goes for the taste and smell, and even with the mind versus mind objects, due to that, mind consciousness will appear. So different types, 6 types are there, and due to certain causes only these things appear. So that's what Buddha is saying. You can't say there's this independent consciousness. You can't say there's this solid permanent consciousness. Instead, it is always dependent on certain causes, and it is not solid. Instead, it is appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. That's how this process continues. So you can see with each sight that you see, you are born again. When that particular sight disappears, you die. They say momentary death. This consciousness appears due to certain causes, you are born. Again, when the causes disappear, consciousness disappears. So this whole process is appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing. That type of a process continues. But this process is so rapid, so vast, you experience a continuous stream of consciousness. That's the issue. That's why we say there's this solid consciousness. That's why we think about a soul. That process is so rapid. That process is so vast. So it feels like there is no separation in between. It feels like this flow is continuous. That type of experience we get. But when you approach meditation, probably initially you feel like it is continuous. Now when you think about your past, you might say that you continue to stay during all those decades. You were experiencing things, you were talking to other people, and you might even present certain evidence as pictures, and you might say that I existed during all those decades. That's ignorance talking. Due to ignorance only, we feel like we existed during all those decades. But when it comes to the practice, when the light appears or the knowledge appears, gradually we start to feel there are certain gaps in this process. It is not continuous. Instead, you feel like it is breaking. The best example would be the breath breaking into pieces. Initially, you feel like a solid, permanent breath. But gradually, when you continue your observation, you start to feel it as a vibration, or you can feel that it is breaking into smaller breath, little sensations. So you can see earlier this stream of consciousness that appears as breath, we felt it as a single consciousness. We felt it as solid. But now you start to experience that stream of consciousness. You start to feel that this is not a single breath. Instead, it's a continuous flow or stream of little breath sensations. So combination, we say a single breath. But when you go deep into it, this consciousness is appearing for many thousands of times during a single breath cycle. Those thousands you put together, you assemble, and you say, I felt the in-breath. Or you would say, I felt the out-breath. But you have to understand thousands and thousands of little sensations. Probably each and every sensation will account to a touch consciousness. Those combination, the whole gang, we feel like a single breath. So that's how this whole process is. We try to figure out where the consciousness is, but it is laughing at us, thinking this idiot is trying to find me while experiencing me in this whole process. So don't try to chase after consciousness. That's not how it's gonna work. Instead, direct your attention towards the breath. You are experiencing a single breath, but that is not the case. Instead, there are thousands of little sensations that will come into a single breath. And initially you feel it as solid, continuous, but later when your observation becomes sharper, you start to feel that it's a combination of little sensations. Same goes for the other things. There is no such thing as a single thought. No. Instead, it's a stream of consciousness that you experience. Stream of mind consciousness that you experience as a thought. There is no such thing as a single sound. Instead, it's a stream of ear consciousness that you experience as a single sound. So you can see how rapid, how vast this process is. Right? So we can only approach this slowly. We can only approach trying to observe a single breath. That's how you should be approaching. Don't go to a newcomer and tell all about consciousness. Instead, ask them, can you at least a single breath, can you at least observe that? Can you at least be mindful for a single step? Can you do that? Otherwise, talking about consciousness, it's a waste of time. Because those people, they can't even be mindful for a single breath cycle. They can't even be mindful for a single step. So how can they understand or experience this vast, rapid process? So you can see in meditation our approach is gradual. Our approach is very simple. Most people, they don't like this. They say, this is so simple. You walk, you feel the steps. You breathe, you feel the breathing. What to observe there, what is hidden there, there's no real essence in this. Instead, they would prefer some teaching about Abhidhamma. That type of a teaching they will prefer, they say, very complicated teaching. If half of the words that you use are not understandable, then they will say that's a great sermon. Right? Because they think that that way they can see the truth. That's how they can find the truth. But that's not the case. Instead, this approach is very simple, gradual. But gradually we work towards the practice, and gradually we get to understand how this whole process works. Gradually we feel how vast, how rapid this whole process is. That very understanding is important. So even for that particular monk, Sati, he too needed some guidance from Buddha. Without those guidance, he'll be going in the wrong direction, spreading that wrong view. I'm not sure whether he accepted properly. I'm not sure whether he got corrected. That's a different matter. But somehow, Buddha confronted him, saying that you were wrong. That very teaching, that particular sutta, tells us much about the Kalyana Mitta approach in this practice. So without such approach, without such support, how can we develop that ability? That's the question that we have to ask. How can we understand such things? That's a question that we have to ask. So you can see even this particular quality, Kalyana Mittata, that is important and that matters a lot. Especially not for a beginner, but when you practice, when you mature in meditation, that proper guidance, proper understanding is important. Without that, you may be heading towards decline. So you can see one by one, Buddha laid down these qualities that will help you non-decline. He explained each and every quality, and he was saying that these qualities help you non-decline in this life. And at the end of this particular teaching, Buddha is mentioning something very interesting, something very important. He is saying, because if there were people in the past who continued this practice with non-decline, then those people had these 6 qualities. Then he is saying, if there will be people in the future who continues this practice with non-decline, then those people will also have these 6 qualities. And he is saying, if there are people in the present who continues this practice with non-decline, then those people also have these 6 qualities. He is saying this teaching is true to the past, it's true to the future, it's true to the present. That type of a profound approach Buddha is taking towards non-decline, and he is saying, without these 6 qualities, there won't be non-decline either in the past, future, or in the present. So you can see these qualities, you have to reflect upon each and every quality. We have been doing that for many days, and those particular qualities will help us towards non-decline. There might be certain mistakes that you are making, certain issues that you are having. You might not be appreciating certain qualities out of it, but that's fine. At least you know that I am at fault. I am making a mistake here. I shouldn't be taking delight in this so much. I shouldn't be doing or having this behavior. So that understanding is important. At least you know that you are doing something wrong. It takes time, it takes effort, but gradually you can correct yourself. Gradually you can approach what Buddha is teaching us, what Buddha is suggesting us. That's the very idea. Now, let's say when we think about the experience, when we see that the breath is breaking, when we see that there are gaps in this process, that's a sharp observation that you have, and maybe due to many days of repetitive practice, you are feeling, at least having a glimpse of the real nature of this process. It is due to probably many days of practice, and we have continued for many days, and that whole foundation is there, and as a result you start to feel that this whole process is not permanent, it is not solid, and it is not independent. Instead you start to feel there are certain gaps in this process. So you can see that we are starting to see the real nature of this. But let's say you finish the retreat, you go back home and you sit in meditation after a couple of days. And you won't probably get the same experience. Because why? This foundation helped you reach there. This many days of hard work helped you reach there. And when you go back home, when you practice after a couple of days, when you are amidst other people, appreciating all the qualities of decline, you might not experience it. But that's okay. That's okay. You understand, due to that foundation only, I had certain through experiences, certain sharp experiences. But probably now the foundation is not there. That's okay. You at home, you can figure out a different balance. Not the exact balance that we had here. You might have to go to work for many hours. You might have to talk to other people. You might have to plan your family matters. That's okay. But there you can figure out a different balance. And that different balance, maybe within few weeks, you get used to it, you figure it out, then again you start to experience such profound meditation sessions. So you can see it's always about the current situation, it's always about the current environment and the level of your practice. Maybe during these days we are having so much of a solid foundation, and as a result we are having good experiences. But when we go back, that foundation might not be so strong. So we have to figure out a new balance, new foundation, and with that you can find that again, even at home, such experiences start coming. So it is always finding the proper balance in a certain situation. Now here, most of you, I think you have figured out the balance that works for this type of environment. And that's after many days of trial and error. And you can do the same thing at home. You can figure out the balance that works for that environment. It takes many days, many weeks, but gradually you realize this is how I can meditate at my usual environment, at my home. And that practice is also encouraged. And later, maybe after few months, few weeks, again you can come back and do another retreat. Again you figure out this particular balance. Again you might have to go back home. That's okay. Again you figure out that particular balance. So that way we continue this practice and there is no rush. We have time. That you have to simply do the justice for the given opportunity. That's all you have to do. Right? Don't worry whether you will die. Don't worry what's there in tomorrow. That's not your concern. What you have to do is do justice for the present experience or the opportunity. If you can go home thinking that I did my best during these 7 days, that's enough. That's enough. Then again you go home, you meditate only for 1 hour. But if you know this is the best I can do in this environment, then that's enough. That's enough. That way you have to continue, do justice to the current situation and continue. And when you continue, gradually the practice grows and you eventually get there. You figure out how this process works. That's the very nature of this practice. That's the very idea. And as I was saying, this process breaks down. Now you can see that we were talking about bodily formations, verbal formations, and finally mental formations. So feeling and perception, those two are considered as mental formation. Let's say when you feel a certain object, even for a brief moment, you are experiencing it through the feeling and perception. Let's say those breath sensations that you experience in a single breath, each and every sensation, you are experiencing it through feeling and perception. So you can see this is the minimum level of the mind formations. It might become stronger, it might grow into certain thoughts, emotions, it might even grow into a depression. We don't know. But when you continue this practice, you see the minimum level, that is the feeling and perception. Even a slight sensation that we feel, that has those two qualities. Without them, we won't be experiencing these things. So you have to understand feeling and perception. That's how we experience this world. There is no going beyond them. You can't say, okay, I saw the earlier things than feeling and perception. Some people, they talk about dependent origination and they start with the consciousness. They say, okay, I have experienced consciousness. I have experienced mind and body. All those ideas they are saying. But they are just simply ideas. Because your minimum level that you can go is the feeling and perception. There is no going beyond that. There is no experiencing beyond that. Right? So what you have to do is simply be there at this level. Simply continue your observation. Again and again you are seeing how the feeling and perception works. Again and again you are seeing how this breath type vibration works. Again and again you are seeing this process is rising and falling. That's the very idea. Things are arising, things are ceasing. That's happening in this moment. And when you do that observation, your mind doesn't attach to the arising things. Your mind doesn't attach to the ceasing things. Instead, it is simply able to do this observation mindfully. No strong attachment towards the things that arise. No strong attachment towards the things that cease. Probably due to many years of continuous practice. And when you do that, you realize now the process starts to fall down or break into pieces. You start to feel there are gaps in between. Now your mind is experiencing this minimum level. Now your mind is able to observe it with a sharp mindfulness. Because there is no real attachment towards the things that arise. There is no real attachment towards the things that cease. But still the process continues. Still, probably in the background, certain kind of attachment is there. Right? But when you continue this observation, maybe for brief moments, for few seconds, few minutes, you can feel that your mind goes beyond feeling and perception. And during those moments, you don't experience anything. Most people, they ask, how do we experience Nibbana? Right? Some people, they come to Buddha and they ask the same question. Buddha usually refuses to answer such questions. But some people came to Venerable Sariputta and was asking, Bhante, how do we feel? What type of a feeling Nibbana is? Then Venerable Sariputta, probably out of kindness, was answering this monk saying, Nibbana is an experience without feeling. It's an experience that has gone beyond feeling. But can we have an experience without feeling? That's a question. Right? So Sariputta was answering like that. Then that monk was saying, Bhante, then what's the use? Why do we try to attain Nibbana? Because we don't feel anything there, no. Right? So that type of answer that monk gave. Then Venerable Sariputta said, that's the real peace. Otherwise, if there is a certain feeling, perception, then naturally the craving arises. Due to this no feeling nature, you become peaceful. You find true peace. That's what Venerable Sariputta was saying. So you can see during those brief moments, we don't feel anything. No worldly problems are there. We don't feel anything. You don't have craving towards this particular experience. If you felt something, then you would have craving towards it. But you don't feel anything, no craving towards it. How do you understand this? You come back to the usual way of perceiving things and you realize past few seconds I was blank. Now the craving arises. I should visit there once again. Right? My meditation, if it works well, tomorrow also I'll experience such a thing. Now the craving arises. You can see, after coming into the feeling and perception, only the craving arises. During that process, you don't feel anything, you are blank. You are blank. Entire worldly problems are resolved. All your family problems are resolved. No attaining Nibbana issues. Not even attaining Nibbana is a problem. Now everything is peaceful. Again you come back to the feeling and you start to feel, okay, I was there blank for few seconds. This is not a unique experience that only Arahant will experience. Instead, all of us, for brief moments, we are experiencing this in our meditation. It is not properly established, that's true. But due to many days of practice, we experience brief moments of Nibbana. But we are not able to sustain it. That's the issue. When you are able to sustain it, you are called an Arahant. Right? So, we as commoners, we as yogis, we are also momentary Nibbana. We are experiencing. For a moment, the whole world resolves. No problems, issues left. No bodily friction felt. But again we come back, we are not able to sustain. Again the whole bodily friction we start feeling. Again whole cravings towards certain meditation experiences or Nibbana comes back. Again family problems appear. So this process you have to probably continue for many years, and when you do that, one day we will be able to sustain this very experience. That's the very approach. That's how you can really develop non-decline in this life. If you are in feeling, if you are in perception, then always there's a risk of decline. If you want to attain the real non-decline, then one day you'll have to go beyond these qualities. And when you go beyond those qualities, there is no such concept as decline. Even decline and non-decline, they disappear. Right? So that's the very idea. And I hope this series of qualities were useful, and we will say that these qualities might help us towards the Nibbana, might help us towards our own practice. With that, we will conclude today's session.